This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, no. Investigation already. Listen, no, open the PDF. PDF can open the. Good morning to all. Today I am going to tell about the next phases which are in relation to the ENT perspective. First of all, what are these are the spaces which are present in the pharynx, around the pharynx in relation to the pharynx. Posteriorly, it is mostly the retropharyngeal space and also the danger space and also the prevertebral space. Retropharyngeal space is immediately present posterior to the esophagus, and posterior to that is the danger space, and posterior to and anterior to the vertebral body is the prevertebral space. And coming to the laterally, there are peritonsillar spaces and also the parapharyngeal space. Peritonsillar space is the space present around the tonsil, that is mostly over the bed of the tonsil, and in this space the vital structures like the glossopharyngeal nerve and the superior constrictor muscles, these are the main structures which are present in the bed of the tonsil. And next to it is the laterally parapharyngeal space. Parapharyngeal space, it is again divided into two components, that is pre-styloid and the post-styloid components. And parapharyngeal space is nothing but the space which is present on either side of the pharynx. This is the simple term. And coming to the next slide, it is the diagram showing the spaces and their relation to the surrounding vital structures. And you can see this is the vertebral body, and these are the muscles which are present like longus colli and longus capitis, and these are embedded in the space of the prevertebral space, and it is the body of the vertebra. Anterior to that is the prevertebral space, and anterior to that is the danger space, which is covered by the alar fascia. Alar fascia is nothing but is a part of the deep fascia, and anterior to the danger space, it is the retropharyngeal space. Mostly the infection gets loculated in this retropharyngeal space, and it can go up to the tracheal bifurcation, and it can lead to the pericarditis or these complications, and also the pleuritis. These are the complications. And coming to the peritonsillar abscess, peritonsillar space, it is the space which is present in the bed of the tonsil, and main structures are the superior constrictor muscle. This is the superior constrictor muscle, and deep to that is the glossopharyngeal nerve. You can see here, these are the nerves. And the next one is the parapharyngeal space. This is the parapharyngeal space. It is divided into pre-styloid and the post-styloid components. You can see the styloid process, pre-styloid and the post-styloid components. And in the post-styloid compartment, there are the nerves and also the greater vessels like the IJV and the carotid, common carotid. And anti-pre-styloid compartment, they are not much of important, but only the lymph node structures are mostly present in this pre-styloid part of the compartment. Next one is the boundaries. What are the boundaries? Which are boundaries for this parapharyngeal space and also the danger space and the retropharyngeal space. Retropharyngeal, coming to the retropharyngeal space, it extends from the base of the skull, and lower limit is nothing but T4, that is a tracheal bifurcation, and anterior boundary is the buccopharyngeal fascia. You can see buccopharyngeal fascia is a part of the deep fascia, and posterior boundary is the alar fascia. It is also part of the deep fascia, and contents are the lymph nodes of the rubeole. Next one is the danger space. It extends from the base of the skull up to the diaphragm, and the anterior boundary is bounded by the alar fascia, and posterior boundary is nothing but the prevertebral fascia. These are all nothing but these fascias are the components of the deep fascia. And prevertebral space, it is it extends from the base of the skull up to the coccyx. So coccyx is nothing but it's present at this pelvis, and lowest part of the spinal cord is nothing but the coccyx. And prevertebral fascia, where anterior boundary is nothing bounded by the prevertebral fascia, covered by prevertebral fascia, and posterior boundary is nothing but the body of the vertebra. Coming to the parapharyngeal space, it extends from the base of the skull up to the hyoid bone. And medial boundary is nothing but the buccopharyngeal fascia. It is in continuity with the most of the retropharyngeal space, and so it can communicate with the opposite parapharyngeal space through the retropharyngeal space. Lateral boundary is nothing bounded by the medial pterygoid, mandible, masseter, parotid gland. You can see in the picture here. Lateral boundary is bounded by the medial pterygoid, masseter, and also the mandible. The main contents in this part are as I have told, it is divided into pre-styloid compartment and the post-styloid compartment. In the post-styloid compartment, I told the major structures are the internal carotid artery, jugular vein, cranial nerves like the 9, 10, 11, 12, which come from the jugular foramen area, and fourth one is the cervical sympathetic chain. Fifth one is the peritonsillar space. Next one. And peritonsillar space, I have told it is present in the bed of the tonsil. When you lift up the tonsil, it is the peritonsillar space. And medial boundary is the capsule of the tonsil, that is pharyngobasilar fascia. And lateral boundary is the superior constrictor muscle. I told it, and it is bounded by fat. Coming to the first pathology, peritonsillar abscess, or it is also known as the quinsy. Route of infection is crypta magna, and crypta magna is nothing but the deepest part of the crypts, one of the crypts, and deepest part of the crypt is called as crypta magna. The infection may get infection spreads from the crypta magna and spreads into the peritonsillar abscess. It is most common in the adults. In adults, tonsil is being atrophied, due to which crypta magna comes in close approximate to the peritonsillar space, and infection can easily spread. I told this all, and in adults it is very much closer to the peritonsillar space, the crypta magna, whereas in the case of children it is somewhat superficial when compared to the adults. Peritonsillar abscess is usually unilateral condition, though occasionally bilateral abscesses are also common, and it is caused by the mixed aerobic and anaerobic organisms, because it is present in exposure to the oral flora, that is the bacteria present in the oral cavity and the oropharynx. Next, peritonsillar abscess usually follows acute tonsillitis, though it may arise de novo without any previous history of the sore throat. Sometimes the patient may present to you in the clinic with only the unilateral tonsillar enlargement, and so you have to rule out in those cases like whether the peritonsillar abscess is present or not. And you can see the texture of the tonsil. Whereas in the case of tonsillitis, the complete tonsil is bulged out. You can see clear the tonsil, but in the case of peritonsillar abscess, the tonsil is pushed medially when compared to the tonsillitis, tonsillar hypertrophy, and there will be only mostly it will be unilateral, but very rarely in the case of bilateral. Very rarely it will be in the case of bilateral cases. First, tonsillar crypt, usually the crypta magna gets infected and it gets sealed off. It forms an intratonsillar abscess, which then bursts out through the tonsillar capsule to set up the peritonsillitis and then abscess. You can see in the picture here clearly. The crypta magna gets infected, and the purulent material gets collected here, and it then spreads through the peritonsillar capsule and infects the peritonsillar space. The main clinical picture is mainly these are the findings we see in the case of peritonsillar abscess. Generally, as you can see, in any case of septicemia or in the case of infection, there will be fever, chills, rigor, and malaise and headache. And locally, there will be severe pain in the throat, and also it is associated with odonophagia. It is so marked that the patient can't even swallow his saliva, which dribbles from the angle of the mouth. and the speech is muffled and thick, and often it is called as hard potato voice. Hard potato voice, you can see there will be blunting of the speech, and also you can see these kinds of speeches in also some other conditions like the supraglottic carcinomas, and also some other cases of mass in the oral cavity. You can see this muffled and thick speech. And fourth one is the foul breath due to the sepsis in the oral cavity, and also in the case of poor oral hygiene. And there will be unilateral ear pain. This is mostly due to the referred pain, which is from the cranial nerve, because the glossopharyngeal nerve is present in the bed of the tonsil. And next one is the trismus. It is due to the spasm of the pterygoid muscles, which are present in the bed of the tonsil. I told you the medial pterygoid is present in close proximity to this peritonsillar space, and also superior constrictor muscles. Coming to the examination part, the tonsil, pillars and soft palate are involved, and on involved side are congested and swollen. And in the case of tonsil itself may not appear enlarged. I told it previously, as it gets buried into the edematous pillars. Only the tonsil is pushed medially. That also unilateral tonsil is most commonly involved. Uvula is swollen and edematous and pushed to the opposite side, and there will be cervical lymphadenopathy is commonly seen. It is due to the reactive lymphadenitis, and also it can be due to the infective part. It is most commonly the jugular digastric lymph nodes. Jugular digastric lymph node nothing but the level 2 lymph nodes. And the next one is the torticollis. Patient keeps the neck tilted to the side of the abscess because to reduce the pain. And you can see in the picture here, this is the peritonsillar abscess here. You can see clearly the uvula is pushed to the opposite side, and also the tonsil is pushed medially, whereas in the case of tonsillitis you can see the hypertrophic tonsil, that is enlarged tonsil. But in the case of peritonsillar abscess, only the tonsil is pushed medially, but you can't clearly see the tonsil. It's clearly embedded in the bed of the tonsil. Management, the patient should be hospitalized first. The first combat the dehydration, and next one is next are the antibiotics. Suitable IV antibiotics to cover both the aerobic and anaerobic organisms, and like penicillins, cephalosporins, you can use whatever it is, and you can also go for the culture sensitivity also, and then you can go for the selective antibiotics, and analgesics are given for the relief of the pain only, and also the oral hygiene should be maintained, like gargling, and also the betadine mouthwashes. You can tell the patient to do this, and the above conservative treatment due to the peritonsillitis. If a frank abscess is found, you have to go for incision and drainage. In the case of incision and drainage, what is the place you go for the incision and drainage? What is the site? And you can see here, and it is a horizontal line through the base of the top uvula. Here it is the uvula, and another one is the line along the anterior pillar. There will be anterior pillar and posterior pillar. You have to go over the line of the anterior pillar, and where these 2 points collide, these are the places where you go for the incision and drainage. A peritonsillar abscess is opened at the point of the maximum bulge or just lateral to the point of junction of the anterior pillar with the line drawn through the base of the uvula. After that, you can go for the interval tonsillectomy. Tonsillectomy being done after the 6 weeks of last episode, it is called as interval tonsillectomy. That is, you give some time for the tonsillectomy to settle, to go for the reduced size of the tonsil, and that is decrease in the abscess, and also if there is a repeated attacks of the peritonsillar abscess, you have to go for tonsillectomy anyway, and usually after first episode in the case of children, and in the case of adults it is 2 episodes. And rationale of doing internal tonsillectomy despite initial IND is repeated IND, and I have said if you are doing repeated IND, you have to go for internal tonsillectomy, and repeated infections which can lead to the fibrosis, making an ultimate tonsillectomy difficult. Next one is the hard tonsillectomy. Hard tonsillectomy, nothing but it is done at the time of the infection, it has the risk of rupture of abscess and excessive bleeding at the time of the operation, because whenever there is an infection, there will be granulation tissue or the underlying increased blood supply, and there will be inflammation. When you go for the tonsillectomy, at that time there will be excessive bleeding because of this vascularization and also the vasodilation effect which is caused by the infection. Next one is a parapharyngeal abscess. It is parapharyngeal space. It is also known as pharyngomaxillary space, and the smallest neck space, and most commonly infected neck space as infection from the tonsil most commonly, and also the dental parotid, which are in close proximity to the parapharyngeal space, and also the retropharyngeal, prevertebral, and submandibular spaces can all lead to the parapharyngeal space infection abscess, because this space connects most of the spaces which are present in the neck, mostly the retropharyngeal space, prevertebral space, which are present in close proximity to this parapharyngeal space, and also anteriorly it will the peritonsillar space, and also the submandibular space, which is present antero-inferiorly. It can spread directly. These all spaces can directly spread into the parapharyngeal space. Styloid with this muscle attachment divides the parapharyngeal space into two compartments. I told it previously. One is the anterior compartment or the pre-styloid compartment. Another one is the posterior compartment or the post-styloid compartment. Coming to the next slide, it is parapharyngeal abscess. Abscess in parapharyngeal space just lateral to or lateral to the lateral pharyngeal wall. It is nothing but the pharynx I have showed previous in the picture. The parapharyngeal space is present on either side of the pharynx. That is in the case of oropharynx or the nasopharynx. It is present on both sides of this, and it can involve the anterior and posterior compartment. If anterior compartment is involved, following the triad of the features can be seen, and mostly the tonsil is pushed medially, and trismus due to the spasm of the medial pterygoid, because these are the structures which are in close proximity to the parapharyngeal space. In the picture, it might look they are present with a bit too far from these, from the parapharyngeal space may be lying too far from this, but in the case of living conditions, these are all the muscles which are present in bulk, and so these are in close proximity to the parapharyngeal space. And the bulge in the neck at the angle of the jaw, that is at the upper one-third of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. One is the tonsil pushed medially because it is present just lateral to the parapharyngeal space, the peritonsillar space also. And second one is the trismus due to the spasm of the medial pterygoid. Third one is the bulge in the neck at the angle of the jaw. You can see in the picture, it is a parapharyngeal abscess with bulge at the angle of the jaw. If there is a abscess in the posterior compartment, then there will be two torticollis due to the spasm of the prevertebral muscles. Because the prevertebral muscles is nothing but the longus capitis, rectus capitis, longus coeli. These are the muscles which are present in the prevertebral space. And symptoms due to the involvement of cranial nerves 9, 10, 11, 12, and cervical sympathetic chain. Cervical sympathetic chain involvement can lead to the Horner syndrome. That is, you can see meiosis, and you can see decreased sweating. There can also be complications involving the major vessels like internal jugular vein thrombosis and rupture of the internal carotid artery, because these are the vital structures which are present in the posterior compartment. I have told IJV, internal carotid artery, and also the cranial nerves, which are present mostly in the parapharyngeal compartment, that is in the posterior compartment. And so if there is an abscess or a mass which is present in the posterior compartment of the parapharyngeal space, can lead to the involvement of these structures, damage to these structures. Management of parapharyngeal abscess. It is also the incision dryness. It is done by a horizontal incision which is of size 2 to 3 centimeters below the lower border of the mandible, along with IV antibiotics, and 2 to 3 centimeters below the lower border of the mandible. And blunt dissection is done along the inner surface of the medial pterygoid towards the styloid process, and abscess is evacuated. Drain is kept in this place, and also transoral drainage should never be done due to the danger of damage to the greater vessels in this space. I have told transoral drainage should be avoided in these cases because the vital structures like the internal jugular vein and internal carotid artery, and also the cranial nerves, which are the most important, like 9, 10, 11, 12, These are present in the posterior compartment, and so whenever you go you go by the transoral route, it should be avoided dealing the infections in this space. Tonsil pushed medially, trismus bulge at the angle of the mandible, and quinsy, there will be tonsil pushed medially, there will be trismus, but bulge at the angle of the mandible is absent in the case of quinsy. Only the tonsil is pushed medially, also along with the pushing of the uvula to the opposite side. Parapharyngeal abscess, these three are present, and treatment is, in the case of quinsy, we go for IV antibiotics. If there is persistence of the quinsy, we go for IND, that is intraoral injection. Whereas in the case of parapharyngeal abscess, we go for IV antibiotics, but IND, it should be external at the lower part of the mandible. Next one is the retropharyngeal abscess. Retropharyngeal space is divided longitudinally by a midline fibrous raphe into paramedial spaces known as space of Gillette, which contains like lymph nodes of Rouvier. Retropharyngeal space, which is present from the nasopharynx and also the oropharynx up to the tracheal bifurcation, and it is present in continuity, but the right and left retropharyngeal spaces are divided. The space is divided in the midline by fibrous raphe into two paramedial spaces, which are called as known as space of Gillette, which contains the lymph nodes of Rouvier. Nasopharynx and oropharynx drain into these lymph nodes. I told this. And next one is acute retropharyngeal abscess. It is most common in the case of children. It is more common in the case of children. It is the result of suppression of retropharyngeal lymph nodes secondary to the infection of adenoids, nasopharynx, and nasal cavity. Whereas in the case of, it may result from penetrating injury of the posterior pharyngeal wall. I told this, and you have to remember this. In the case of children, the adenoids are more common, and also whenever there is a adenoiditis, when it can lead to the retropharyngeal abscess because of the involvement of retropharyngeal lymph nodes. The lymph nodes, which are known as nodes of Rouvier, and also when there is infection of nasopharynx, it can lead to the retropharyngeal abscess and also the nasal cavity also. Whereas in the case of adults, it is most commonly due to the penetrating injury. Rarely, pus from the acute mastoid acid tracks along the undersurface of the petrous bone to present as the retropharyngeal abscess. It is very much rare, but it can lead to the acute mastoiditis. When there is a pus leakage, it can lead to the abscess of the retropharyngeals. Clinical features: mostly dysphagia and difficulty in swallowing are the prominent symptoms, as abscess obstruct the both air and food passages. And next is a stridor and croup may be present. Croup is nothing but the laryngotracheal bronchitis. It is due to the inflammation which is set by this infection, because it is in close proximity to the trachea up to the tracheal bifurcation. The trachea can get flappy, and also there can be torticollis, the neck becomes stiff, and head is kept extended, and there can be bulge in the posterior pharyngeal wall, usually seen on one side of the midline. One is the dysphagia and difficulty in swallowing, and the second one is the stridor and croup because of the collapse of the trachea, and the croup is nothing but laryngotracheal bronchitis. And you can see pencil sign you can remember in the case of croup, and in the case of torticollis, the neck becomes stiff and head is kept extended. And the next one is the bulge in the posterior pharyngeal wall, you can see clearly. Radiograph of the soft tissue laterally of the neck. You have to remember this in the practical point of view. You may get this X-ray in the practical point of view. It shows widening of the prevertebral shadow and even the presence of gas. You can see clearly there is the widening which is present in the prevertebral space, and also in the case of any sharp foreign bodies which can lead to the tear of the posterior pharyngeal wall. It can also lead to the retropharyngeal abscess and retropharyngeal edema, and it can lead to prevertebral widening. Normal prevertebral shadow at C2 7 mm, whereas at C6 in children 14 mm, in adults it is 21 mm. How to remember these points? Remember this X-ray because you may get in the practical exams. Treatment: Incision and drainage. This is usually done without anesthesia as there is a risk of rupture of the abscess during intubation, and the patient is kept in supine with head low, mouth is open with gag. Vertical incision is given in most fluctuant area of the abscess. Suction should be present to prevent aspiration of the pus. And also you have to go for IV antibiotics. IND should be done in the without any anesthesia, because whenever you are doing the rupture of the abscess, it may get trickled into the airway, and it can lead to the aspiration of the pus, and it can lead to the pulmonary complications. The incision is vertical incision. The patient should be kept in supine only with head low, because whenever you give the head in a lower position when compared to the body, the pus gets only collected in the nasopharynx area and also the oropharynx area, but it will not go into the airway. Next one is chronic retropharyngeal abscess. It is more common in adults. It is mostly due to the TB spine. You have to remember this point also. In the case of children, it is adenoids, nasopharynx, and in the case of nasal cavity infections. Whereas in the case of adults, it is mostly due to the penetrating injury. Whereas in the case of chronic retropharyngeal abscess, it is most commonly seen in adults. It is mostly due to the TB spine. Management is anti-tubercular therapy. Retropharyngeal abscess and prevertebral abscess. We have to differentiate between these two. Retropharyngeal abscess presents as a unilateral paramedian bulge on the posterior pharyngeal wall. You have to remember this. It is a unilateral paramedian bulge, and there will be widening of the prevertebral shadow. Whereas in the case of prevertebral abscess, it presents as a diffuse bulge over the posterior pharyngeal wall, because in the case of retropharyngeal space, there will be midline raphe, which is separating the retropharyngeal space into two. These are called a space of Gillette. And in the case of prevertebral abscess, there will not be any paramedian raphe, the midline raphe. So there will be a continuous space which is present from the base of the skull up to the coccyx. And in the case of prevertebral abscess, there will be widening of the prevertebral shadow. In both, there will be prevertebral shadow widening, but the differentiating feature is only one unilateral paramedian bulge is present in the case of retropharyngeal abscess. Ludwig's angina. First, before going to the Ludwig's angina, we have to discuss about the anatomy of the submandibular space. Submandibular space lies between the mucous membrane of the floor of the mouth and tongue on one side, and the superficial layer of the deep cervical fascia extending between the hyoid bone and the mandible on other side. It is divided into two compartments by the mylohyoid muscle. One is the sublingual compartment above the mylohyoid muscle, and second one is the submaxillary or submandibular compartment, which is present below the mylohyoid muscle. The two compartments are continuous around the posterior border of the mylohyoid. You can see clearly here. It is then it is anatomy of submandibular space. It is submandibular gland, that is submandibular salivary gland, and it is the mylohyoid muscle, and it is the tongue. This is the sublingual space. This is the anterior belly of the digastric, and this is the submaxillary space, and this is the sublingual space. Above the mylohyoid muscle is sublingual space. Below the mylohyoid is the submaxillary space. But the two spaces communicate with each other at the posterior border of the mylohyoid. Etiology: dental caries, most commonly in 80% of the cases, and roots of the premolars, that is the teeth which are present anterior to the molars, and often lie above the attachment of the mylohyoid, leading to the sublingual space infection. Roots of the molars lie below the line of attachment of the mylohyoid, leading to submaxillary space infection. Submandibular silenitis, injuries of the oral mucosa, and fracture of the mandible account for other causes. You can see in the picture, these are the molars 2 and 3, and this is the premolar. And so any infection it is the attachment of the mylohyoid muscle. So sublingual space infection, abscess collection can be most commonly due to premolars infection, and whereas in the case of submaxillary space infection or abscess collection, it will be most commonly due to the molars. Ludwig's angina. This is the infection of the submandibular space, and it can lead to cellulitis of the submandibular space. And the clinical features are nothing but there is marked difficulty in swallowing with varying degree of the trismus, and that is difficulty in swallowing. It is nothing but duodenophagia and trismus. And when infection is located to the sublingual space, structures in the floor of the mouth are often swollen, and tongue is seen to be pushed up and back. You can see here in the picture. Whenever the sublingual space is infected or abscess is collected in this space, it can lead to the pushing up of the tongue upwards, and it can lead to the pushing of the tongue backwards, and it can lead to the difficulty in breathing, which can lead to the also stridor. Sublingual space infection, you can see in the picture here, the tongue is pushed up and pushed posteriorly, and in some cases it can get pushed posteriorly. When the infection spreads to the submaxillary and submental space, the submandibular region becomes swollen and tender and imparts the woody hard feel. You can see here. There will be the oral cavity examination will be normal without any bulge of the tongue or pushing up of the tongue. There will be only tongue is progressively pushed upwards and backwards, threatening the infection. Whenever the infection in the submaxillary space communicates with the sublingual space, then it can lead to the pushing of the up of the tongue and backwards. Management is IV antibiotics, and next one is the IND. IND, you have to go for bilateral incision, not unilateral. Incision extending from one angle of the mandible to the other angle of the mandible. It is an emergency procedure. Incision is mainly given to release the pressure of the tissue and accelerate the healing. And also one point is you shouldn't go for suturing in all these abscess cases, because suturing can lead to the more infection, and it can lead to the again collection of the pus, and you have to leave the wound to heal by secondary intention only. Thank you. And, these are the pictures you have to remember. And also remember the picture, that is retropharyngeal abscess picture, because you may get in the practicals point of view. This is prevertebral so widening. You should keep in mind this point. Thank you.